Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. All members and guests, today is March the 23rd, the Police Services Board meeting in Norfolk County. I'd like to remind everyone that our meeting is being web streamed and televised. I would ask that you ensure your phones are silenced mode, to keep your camera on and mute yourself when you're speaking. And just remember to unmute yourself if speaking. Please use Microsoft Teams, raise your hand feature icon to be called upon and to remove it after you're finished. With that, I'm going to call the March 23rd Police Services Board meeting in Norfolk County to order. And prior to that, I'm going to ask our board secretary for a roll call. I just would like to know who is on and who is here with us. So Mrs. Olson, please.
Thank you. Through the chair. So on the meeting today for Police Services Board members, we have Chair Santos, Vice Chair Huffman, Member Cruz, and Member Van Houten. In the chambers today, we have Mr. Orville Slack and Ms. Jean Montgomery as deputations. We have our new police chief, Sean Johnson, and we have 4 members from the OPP with us as well. And online at this time, it appears that we have a Mr. Dave Nickel, Elizabeth Jolie, Elizabeth Smith, Jennifer Kelly, Peter Hellier, John Skerrick, and Steve Quinton. And it looks like there may be a few other guests with some of the guests that are online. Did you want them to introduce themselves?
If they could, please, and thank you. And what ward they're representing, please, and thank you.
All of the individuals on the virtual meeting besides the members are here in support of Mr. Slack regarding the cannabis deputation.
Thank you very much.
So if there is anybody online that we did not call this morning, if you just want to introduce your name so we can put it on the record.
Daphne Schuyler, Ward 7. Debbie Grant, Ward 7.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Quinton, Ward 2.
Through the chair, I believe that might have been everybody then.
So if I may, we have all wards present or just the 2 wards? I heard Ward 7 and Ward 2.
Sorry, through the chair, I don't know the words of all of the other people who are online. It doesn't say on their meeting piece.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, approval of the agenda, changes to the agenda, item number 2. Also, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So the agenda I'm going to refer to as the case record. And I believe there are one of 107 pages. And then I'll refer to the OPP. I believe there's one of 16 pages, and I'll mark that as exhibit 2 so that we're all on the same page. So again, the agenda, case record, and then exhibit 1 being the pages 1 of 16. Okay, so with that, the amendments to the agenda was published yesterday, including the OPP stats for February monthly stats. So that has just been referred to as exhibit number 1. We'd like to add a deputation of Ms. Jean Montgomery, who will be providing an update related to the Community Policing Committee. She's here present today around the table. And also I'd like to ask that we request that we allow Ms. Montgomery to provide her deputation prior to the presentation portion of this agenda. So with that, are there any other agendas to our members? No? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Vice Chair Huffman, and I believe seconded by provincial appointee Van Houten. Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's
Uh,
passed.
Sorry, through the chair, because we cannot see Member Cruz will have to vote verbally.
I approve.
Yeah, I can see you. You voted in favor? Sorry about, did you understand that, Member Cruz? Did you vote in favor of the agenda? I take that as a nod, yes?
Yes, yes, I did.
Okay,
I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing it as well?
Member Cruz, I do hear an echo in the background. Are you good there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll move on. For any declaration of interest.
Member Cruz, you're on the meeting twice. That might be the problem. Do you have two pieces of technology hooked up?
Member Cruz, we can't hear you.
No, I don't. I was just trying to get my camera going here, and I think I've got it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is
Yes.
there an echo?
No.
We're good.
Okay, thank you, Member Cruz.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any declarations of interest from the members of the Norfolk Police Services Board?
Mr. Chair, I just want to note that the mayor has joined us.
The mayor has joined us.
Hi, George. I'm going to stay on as long as I can here this morning.
Mayor Chop, good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
So we are on the declarations of interest on the agenda that's referred to as a case record, which is one of 107. So no declarations. Okay, we will move on to our regular meeting. So the Police Service Board meetings of January the 19th. Unless there's any errors or omissions, may I have a motion to approve those minutes as presented? Has everyone had an opportunity to look at them? Yes? Okay. Member Cruz?
I make the motion to
Make the
approve.
motion. Seconder? Provincial appointee Van Houten? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we're going to move on to the deputation at this time. So I'm going to ask Ms. Jean Montgomery, who's the chair of the Community Policing Committee, to update us, if you could please, with reference to your role and what has taken place in the last month. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Chair Santos, Police Service Board members, staff, OPP, and guests, and online guests. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's much appreciated that we can develop this relationship and really confirm our roles and how we might work together. The Community Policing Committee has revived and all our members are eager to get started and get going. So we really appreciate this opportunity. But we need to have our role clarified. That was because of COVID and we couldn't meet together. It was difficult and it was new to everyone, as some had been members of their local policing, community policing. This role is very different. It can be very different. So we struck a subcommittee that met recently to review the terms of reference. So we've gone over those and perhaps there can be a few changes made. But we see ourselves as representatives of our communities, and we want to bring forward significant issues and concerns that we see every day And we understand that we are accountable to the Police Services Board and that we want to develop that relationship so that we can bring forth that information. We want to provide information, but we also want to receive information, which we have in the past from our great partners from the OPP. So as we see ourselves, our role will be that the members of the Community Policing Board Committee will represent their ward, bring forward issues and concerns that may be significant to their ward or may be significant to Norfolk County. We will transfer those concerns to the Police Services Board, who in turn has the liaison with the OPP. So I just think that collaboration and connectedness in this process is very important, and we really truly appreciate the opportunity. Chair Santos was at our last meeting of the community policing, and we had great feedback from our members, and we're ready to get started. And together we can really make a difference in how our community strives for its well-being. So that is my little blurb. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you, Chair Montgomery. So I'll leave the questions to the board members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you to for all you do. And I certainly realize it was very difficult, especially with the COVID scenario, and it just made everything more difficult. And so thank you so much. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity again to be here, and the collaboration is very important. None of us work alone, and we need to see that collaborated effort. So really looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I am very busy at work, and I wish I could stay for the whole meeting, but I will certainly catch up online. And if there's any other concerns or questions.
Sorry, we have a question from Vice Chair Huffman, Ms. Montgomery. So go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Good morning, Jean. How are you?
Great, thanks. Good to see you too.
I have a quick question. One, I was wondering, my understanding of the Community Policing Board is that, the committee, sorry, is that there's a representative from each ward. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, there's been a little miscommunication, and we have had one resignation. So we hope to revamp that and ensure that there is a representative from every ward.
Okay. And just as a point that I think in terms of making sure that the cohesiveness and the information is shared, it would be great if the representative for each ward could reach out to their ward councillor, so that then there could be a dialogue in terms of that, because we often get the information from the community. So in regards to things that would benefit the policing committee, the community policing committee. So that would be a great liaison between the two. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we noticed yesterday at council meeting that when we were doing the minutes of committee meetings, is that there is not a council appointee to the community policing committee. So we're looking into that, about adding someone to that committee so that there can be a liaison back to council in terms of reporting from the minutes and any action item lists, items on the list could be initiated by staff.
Through the chair, thank you, Member Huffman. I really appreciate that, because I think we need the collaboration and we need the information sharing if we want to be successful. So for sure, we'll put that on our agenda for our next meeting. Thank you so much.
No problem. Sounds great. Take care.
Just have a question here from Board Secretary Olson. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Through the chair to Ms. Montgomery, just to clarify, the Community Policing Committee is now an advisory committee of council. So members have to be recruited through our office. They're not just recruited through the committee. they have to be recruited through us and then appointed by county council to the board. So if there's a resignation, if you could pass that on to us, and we can start for a recruitment of that position.
Through the chair, thank you. We understand that process. Unfortunately, we've had 3 different clerks and some information has been lost. And I know Aaron is doing his best to get us up to speed, but we've certainly realized that. And that information was shared with the clerk, perhaps a former clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Any other questions of the board members? Seeing none, I want to thank you, Ms. Montgomery, for taking the opportunity to volunteer your time and be chair of the board. I also want to make everyone aware that on April the 26th, you have a board meeting that starts at 6 o'clock and that usually goes for 2 hours. I just wanted to ask you, who is the OPP representative on the board? I know that we had Acting Staff Sergeant Fox on. If you could just explain.
Yes, he had filled in for Christine Kleensberg. And I believe she's on leave. I'm not sure. So I'm not exactly sure who our liaison officer would be.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask our Chief of Police, Chief Johnson. Would you have any idea?
Yes, it is my understanding that Acting Staff Sergeant Andy Fox is representing our organization on that board.
Through the chair, and we certainly appreciate that liaison. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you once again, and I'll reassure you that we'll make every effort to communicate with you in reference to stats and our minutes. But I just want to reiterate, we're under the Police Services Act, so very different from the community policing, as you're aware, and that was made clear at our last meeting. So thank you very much for your time and your effort, and we look forward to seeing you on April the 26th.
Thank you so much to everyone.
Have a great day. And with that, I will need a motion to receive the deputation of Ms. Montgomery for information. So Vice Chair Huffman has motioned and seconded by Member Cruz. And all in favor? Perfect. Carried. We'll move on to presentations of the agenda. I want to welcome Chief Sean Johnson. I'm going to ask him to put forth his introduction. I know he has 33 years of policing. So Chief, I will put the floor to you, please, and thank you, and welcome to Norfolk County.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to come here today. Hello to all our virtual members, our guests on board, and those who are in attendance here. By way of introduction, my name is Sean Johnson. I've been with the Ontario Provincial Police. I'm in my 34th year of policing, all with the OPP. My service has been through the GTA, Lambton County, Huron County, South Bruce, Kincardine, Bruce Peninsula, Perth County, Essex. At the same time, I've also fulfilled roles at West Region Headquarters as well as General Headquarters. During my tenure with the organization, I have filled in detachment commander roles, filling in at Huron Detachment as the detachment commander, Perth County, Wyerton, Bruce Peninsula, and Lambton County. I also spent time in Orillia in the 90s working on the adequacy standards when they had come out. I've also spent time in Orillia being an executive officer for Deputy Commissioner of Field Support and Traffic. As of recent, I spent 2 years in CTSB, or Communication Technology Services Bureau, which is all of our communications and technology. And my home position is actually Traffic and Marine in West Region. So my home location is responsible for all traffic marine programs ranging from Pelee Island to Tobermory, from Sarnia to Haldimand County, which is in a support role to all the detachments. I had the opportunity to provide leadership and major incident support in other areas, such as I was involved in Ipperwash. I was involved in the Godrich tornado. I've been local to the Caledonia incident a number of times. I've also had opportunity to come here and serve the members of your community in the past at PD 13 on a number of occasions, as well as Potohawk. So when the opportunity arose to fill a short-term vacancy in the absence of Commander Varga, as he transferred onto another opportunity, I put my hand forward and said that I would be happy to come and fulfill that role, as my career has kind of led me to this path. So I am here now. I can tell you unequivocally, representing West Region and being there, that Norfolk is really a strong leader within the OPP and within West Region. The leadership has been second to none, and the members and the morale in this detachment is, as they say, in the top percentile in West Region. So I saw this as a great opportunity for me to come and be a part of this community. So I'm happy to be here. I can talk a little bit about what the process looks like, but in short of that, any answers or any questions that you have of me, I'm happy to be in Norfolk County.
Thank you, Chief Johnson, and once again, welcome. I will leave it up to the board now if there are any questions of our board members to Chief Johnson. I see 2 individuals nodding no. Mayor Chop, do you have any questions?
No, none from me, sir, but just welcome and thanks for taking on the role here with us in Norfolk.
Thank you very much.
And Chief, with 34 years of experience, I'll refer to the word wisdom. So we'll be tapping into the wisdom. And I know over the last 2 weeks, we have spoken and other board members have spoken, and certain issues have been addressed. And I want to thank you for that and that leadership. And with that, being that there's no other questions, I'm going to ask that there be a motion to receive the presentation introducing our new OPP Chief Johnson and his updates. Okay, so the motion by, let me just see here, provincial appointee Van Houten, and seconded by, it was member Cruz. All in favor? Okay, thank you. So with that, I'll ask our chief to also give us a clear understanding of Staff Sergeant Fashing, if you could, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's my great honor. I've worked with a number of members of, as I say, of Norfolk Detachment, and Staff Sergeant Fashing is one of the members I've worked with for a number of years in different roles when he was in Oxford and other locations in crime, and since he has been here in Norfolk. And he is, I can tell you unequivocally, he has been a champion for your police service at the regional level. Him, Inspector Varga, the previous management team have all been well represented and well represent your detachment at the at West Region and at provincial as a whole. I'm proud to announce that Staff Sergeant Fashing has announced his retirement. That is effective. Actually, his last day of work will be next Thursday, March 31st, but his final day will be April 30th. And that's after 32, I believe, and a half years of service. I'll get him to maybe speak to his years of service, and then I have a small presentation for him. So through the chair.
Chief Johnson, thank you. Staff Sergeant Fashing, would you like to say a few words before myself or the board has a few words to say, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few short words, and thank you, Inspector Johnson, for the introduction. My career's led me throughout the province, and I was very, very fortunate to be able to end it here in Norfolk County, a place where I've been a lifelong resident, will continue to be a lifelong resident. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the members of the Norfolk community, to serve with the members of the Norfolk Detachment. And I would like to speak to the strong partnerships we've developed with our Norfolk County counterparts. The past couple of years have been challenging, and we've gotten through a myriad of challenges. And one of the reasons we were able to successfully do so was those strong partnerships and the great communication we have with the Police Services Board Norfolk County and our partners throughout. I thank you very much for the privilege of being here and being able to serve Norfolk County. Thank you.
Staff Sergeant Fashing, thank you. Staff Sergeant, I've known you for 2.5 years, and of the 2.5 years that I've known you, I can definitely say that you've shown pride and professionalism and great leadership for your position as Staff Sergeant with the OPP here in Norfolk County and with the OPP. I wish you all the best in your retirement, and I would now ask that all our board members stand and applaud you for your years of service. I wanted to say thank you. And once again, on behalf of the Norfolk County and the Police Services Board, we want to wish you the best in your retirement and thank you once again for your service, both in Norfolk and Haldimand and throughout the province of Ontario. Okay, we have a certificate now.
Thank you, Chair. And with our organization for the awareness of all who are present, we have a number of presentations, and there will be other presentations that take place upon his retirement, such as his retirement badge, of which officers carry for their life, of which they've earned and are very proud. But one that I wish to present here, if I may, before the Police Services Board and the guests, is the
Chief Johnson, please go ahead.
Thank you. So it gives me great pride providing service to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So we'll take the opportunity to take a picture now, if that's okay. Thank you, Chief. And once again, congratulations, Staff Sergeant. Chief, do we have any other updates? 5-minute recess. Sorry, everyone, one more second. Good morning, everyone. We're back on at 9:36. Sorry for that little glitch. We might have a few more glitches in the next little while because of the internet provider, but we'll work with what we have. So if everyone's on side, we'll continue. And I'll put the floor back to Chief Johnson. Chief Johnson?
Thank you, Chair Santos. Yes, as we were speaking, Detachment Commander Inspector Joe Varga has recently been successful in as you know, he was obviously, first of all, seconded away, but he was recently successful in a competition for a major critical incident commander. I think he was going to be here with us today, but perhaps his role has taken him elsewhere in the province. The role that he's assumed now as major critical incident commander is a very significant role, and it pays a tribute to the leadership and qualities that he has. And there's only, I believe, there's only 4 or 5 in the province, and so he travels throughout the province. And some of the things he's been tied up on lately were the trucker convoys, the bridge blockade, Ottawa, and all of those things at a provincial level. So to say that he is well versed and well experienced is an understatement. So anyway, with regards to that, I know he's been very proud to serve here, and he's very proud of this community of which he resides. And I just wanted to provide, if I may, Chair, a bit of a process in the replacement of your permanent person while I sit in the interim chair. And as, if I may.
By all means, Chief, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So by way of, with the OPP, what we do is we want to ensure that you have the best quality leadership that you possibly can. And because we're such a diverse organization, the leadership can come, the people can come from anywhere throughout the province, as you've heard from my experience and you've seen with some of your past members here. So with regards to the replacement of your police chief, your detachment commander, I can tell you that right now, this week specifically, there's what's called a inspector talent pool that's ongoing in Aurelia. And so the likes of confirmed staff sergeants, such as Staff Sergeant Fashing, should he have wished to seek promotion, what he would do is he would apply, and then he would go through an application process, interview process, exam process, and all of that stuff is ongoing right now. And at the conclusion of that, everything is tallied, and then it becomes a pool in which applicants are then drawn from. So it's very specific, it's very knowledge, skills, and ability based, demonstrated behaviors, and all of those types of things, so that we well position not only your community well for a leadership role, but our organization, because all those roles become transferable, as we see with myself moving in and out. So we want to make sure the leadership qualities are there. So what will end up happening is that pool will be created, and then as you know, a section board a section 10 board has participation with the picking of your detachment commander. So once that pool is created, there'll be an expressive interest set out, and so then that basically says who's interested in what positions in the organization. And this is not the only detachment commander position that's currently vacant. I can tell you in West Region, Perth County is vacant, as is Grey County. So there's 3 immediate vacant positions. So then you can anticipate there will be an interest that is sent out. People start showing their interest, and at that point, or right around the same time, members from West Region Command Team, whether or not it's Chief Superintendent Dwight Tibb or one of the 3 superintendents, will reach out to your police service board through myself, and you will have some discussions about process and about how that process will unfold and what representation from your police services board will look like. And as I said, it's very process driven, and that will then follow. I can't give you a time frame. I can assure you that as an organization, we want seamless leadership. We want effective leadership. So I can commit that it will be as promptly done as it can be. But we want to make sure it's a process is followed, and the candidates are well vetted and well positioned to assume a role. I can commit to you that I am here for the duration of that process. With Staff Sergeant Fashing retiring, and currently Staff Sergeant Klingbeil on a short-term absence. It does. I do know that it does create some leadership challenges at the top end, but you have my commitment, Chair and board members, that I will give you 100% of my time and dedication. And part of our team is, as you've met before, Acting Staff Sergeant Andy Fox. He will be a part of it, and I'm pleased to announce that Sergeant Rob Page, who is also from Norfolk County, who's in the gallery here today, he will be assuming as of April 2nd the acting staff sergeant role. So the seamless leadership will, he's being right now mentored by Staff Sergeant Fashing to ensure that there's a transfer of knowledge. And I can trust you that 32 knowledge, there'll be a lot of knowledge that's walking out the door, but with Acting Staff Sergeant Page and Acting Staff Sergeant Fashing, they both are locally committed, live in the area. And so I feel very confident that your police service is well positioned as we move forward.
Thank you, Chief Johnson. Are there any questions of the board members? Vice Chair Huffman, any questions? Member Cruz, any questions? Mayor Chop, any questions?
Through the chair, I believe Mayor Chop has left the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Board Secretary. Olson. Mr. Van Houten, any questions? No? Thank you for that clarification, Chief. And we want to also welcome Acting Staff Sergeant Rob Page and Acting Staff Sergeant Andy Fox. I know that you've been here before, but thank you and welcome. All right. And with that, if we have no other questions, we will move on the agenda of the case record. Now, we did already motion the presentation with regards to the introduction, so we're not going to have a mover and a seconder in that regard. We're going to go right to the deputations. So if I may, I understand we have here Debbie France as cannabis follow-up, but I understand Mr. Orville Slack will be providing a deputation today on behalf of Mrs. France. I also understand a number of supporters are in attendance and will be part of this meeting linked as observation only. These individuals already made themselves clear earlier on the roll call. So with that, the floor is yours, Mr. Slack, and I know you've been here before in front of the Police Services Board, and I'm very well aware of who you are and what you stand for. So the floor is yours, Mr. Slack, and welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Santos. Thank you to you, members of the board, for giving me an opportunity to come in and speaking to you today. First, though, I'd like to congratulate you, Mr. Chairman, on your appointment to the board, to Councilor Huffman for her appointment as vice chair, but also for Mr. Cruz, your appointment to the board. Very important roles that you individuals have to play here. I'd like to point out to the members of the Police Service Board, the residents from every ward across Norfolk County have joined us virtually this morning. They represent residents who are very concerned about the issue of illegal cannabis cultivation and the associated criminality that is attached to that. Due to the concerns associated with COVID, they were not permitted to be here with us in person this morning. However, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, they've joined us virtually. And the last count I had last night, I think, was there were supposed to be 16. I'm not sure if they all showed up and were able to get connected, but that was a number. Excuse me. Legal cannabis cultivation is a very big problem in Norfolk. One reason is due to the large numbers of the illegal grow-ups that are established. I've heard the number 113. I've also heard the number 122. The second reason is for most of these illegal grow-ups are being established and operated by members of organized crime. The fact that organized crime has become entrenched in Norfolk County on such a large scale should be alarming to every member of the Norfolk Council, OPP command staff, and every member of this Police Services Board. It certainly is a great concern to the residents of Norfolk. Norfolk County has been hit with a tsunami of neglect. The OPP have neglected to address this issue of illegal cannabis cultivation in Norfolk and thus have neglected the residents of Norfolk. Mayor Chop and the members of Norfolk County Council have neglected to take effective and adequate steps to address illegal cannabis cultivation in Norfolk and thus have neglected the residents of Norfolk County. Members of this Police Service Board have failed to meet their obligations as set out by the Comprehensive Police Services Act, thus neglecting the residents of Norfolk County. Most of us are fortunate not to live beside one of these illegal grow-ups. We drive past the facilities, we smell the skunk smell, and for a few minutes, and then we drive away. The residents, taxpayers, who live in the vicinity of these illegal grow-ups do not have that option. They cannot drive away and leave the smell behind. These residents cannot put the distance between themselves from the criminality which exists at these illegal grow-ups. Odor is the most obvious concern of residents, but there are others. As previously mentioned, it was the criminal element. Everyone should remember that illegal cannabis cultivation equals guns, gangs, meth, and organized crime. There's a safety aspect of living beside one of these illegal grow-ups. There are the issue of fear that these residents endure 24/7 living beside these illegal grow-ups. There's the environmental concerns, which, if time permits, I would like to speak to in greater detail. This problem, like many problems, is like an onion. There's many layers to it. There's the issue of devalued property. There's health concerns. On behalf of the residents and taxpayers of Norfolk County, I have 3 requests of this Police Service Board this morning. With the permission of you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask a few questions, and I believe the Q&A will add clarity of why the residents come to you this morning with the request.
Mr. Slack, if I may, questions, by all means, I'm ready and willing, and I believe the board members are also ready and willing if you have any questions, or if need be, the OPP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with members of the board and more specifically you, Mr. Chairman. In the spirit of fairness, I wish to acknowledge that you, Mr. Santos, has only been elected chairman of this Police Service Board since January of this year. I would ask that all of us keep this in mind when I ask these questions of Mr. Santos. It is recognized the primary cause of illegal cannabis cultivation has been the incredibly flawed drafting and implementation of the Cannabis Act. The federal government created this problem, and it's going to be the responsibility of the federal government to make the necessary changes to the act. While we wait and wait and wait to see if the federal government will step up and make the necessary changes to this act, there have been many missed opportunities to address this problem at the municipal level here in Norfolk County. With respect to the Police Services Board, this board has missed opportunities to help residents of Norfolk by reducing the negative impact of illegal cannabis cultivation. Number one, the Norfolk County Police Services Board Strategic Business Plan for 2020 to 2022 under priorities and objectives states, reduce illegal drug crime. I suggest to the members of this Police Services Board, you have failed to meet the first objective and priority listed in your strategic business plan with respect to illegal cannabis cultivation here in Norfolk. Would you agree, Mr. Santos?
If I may, Mr. Slack, the first question here with regards to the federal government, would I agree that they failed us and have failed us? I would say yes. Have they responded to our concerns? I would say no. We do have in the agenda or the case record on one of the pages that will be referenced later on, a response. Is it a response that I am happy with? No. And I don't think our board members are also. But speaking on behalf of the board in reference to the federal government, this is something that has been mandated by the federal government, downloaded to the municipal governments, and it's up to the municipal governments to respond. The Police Services Board here, how I see it is you're looking for leadership. We can be a vessel and somewhat of a leader as the Norfolk Police Services Board to council to ask for assistance or at least a clear understanding. And this issue has come up previously. So to answer you on the first one, the federal government has failed. Secondly, with reference to our Police Services Board, we are grappling, we're doing the best we can. We had to wait 6 months for a response. We've made 3 inquiries. And I think Councillor Huffman or Vice Chair Huffman and Member Cruz and I can also say here to our provincial appointee Van Houten, we're doing what we can with the ability that we have under the Police Services Act, and we're very limited under Section 10 policing, as you're aware. Now, to answer your other questions, I'm going to hesitate because I have to put this back to our county council. And Vice Chair Huffman, if you can guide me on this, because ultimately at the end of the day, I'm very well aware of what the Police Services Board mandate is. I don't want to sway here, but I'm going to need some direction in regards to your political hat as a councillor for Norfolk County and your hat as a vice chair of the Police Services Board. So Councillor Huffman, if I may, so Mr. Mr. Slack, I'm going to refer this to Councillor Huffman, our vice chair on the board. Vice Chair?
Okay, thank you, Chair Santos. I thought I heard an echo. Thank you, Mr. Slack, for your comments. And do I feel that, and I'll put on my counselor hat right now, do I feel that this has been an issue that hasn't been addressed in a fulsome way since the 2018 election? Absolutely. I know I have attempted at several different junctures to bring something forward. I do have another notice of motion that's coming forward on April the 12th in regards to hoop greenhouses. How I deal with this as a ward councillor, when I get calls from the community in regards to this, I contact Bylaw immediately. So Bylaw then takes it over. I don't know if there's a miscommunication between the understanding of council members in terms of what the role is. I don't know where the breakdown is. We have addressed one aspect of this, and it came to light again yesterday, is that in terms of our advisory committees, and police services boards would fall under that, is that when we do a review of minutes, there's action items that have been forwarded from the minutes of community meetings. It is now the responsibility of the council member to bring forward those action items. So now when police services board minutes come up on the agenda, not only are they there just for the reading of fellow council members, things will be addressed in terms of action items. So this is one way to kind of liaison between the PSB and Norfolk County Council. I'm hoping this is of benefit in terms of getting the dialogue going again and getting some appetite around the council table with my colleagues to continue to address this issue. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Does that give any clarity, Mr. Slack?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the comments, but the bottom line is that under priorities and objectives, number one is to reduce illegal drug crime, and I don't see that happening in Norfolk. Let me continue. The Norfolk Police Services Board and their purpose and function is shown on your Police Services Board website states. The primary function of the Police Service Board is to determine priorities and objectives for the police service within the community. The Comprehensive Police Service Act, Section 681 states the OPP detachment shall determine objectives and the priorities for the detachment not inconsistent with a strategic plan prepared by the minister after consultation with the detachment commander or his or her designate. Advise the detachment commander with respect to policing provided by the detachment. My question is, illegal cannabis grow-ups and organized crime are not specified as an objective or a priority on this police services board. Considering the scale of this problem, and the seriousness of this problem, I suggest the priorities and objectives of this board to speak to this issue. I'll leave before I move on. I'd just like to share with members of the board the following. Following the G20 summit in Toronto, concerns were raised with respect to how the Toronto Police Service Board or service plan for the G20 summit, executed the plan as well as the conduct of some of the officers. Retired Judge John Morden was given the task of conducting a review of what happened, and Morden submitted a 425-page report on June 29th of 12, and the Toronto Star reported on the contents of that report. With respect to the role of the Toronto Police Services Board played leading up to the G20 summit, Morden wrote as follows. Information, including operational information, is a key element in what the board requires in the proper discharge of its statutory responsibility to oversee the Toronto Police Service. In practice, however, the board has wrongly misinterpreted the act and has been reluctant to ask questions when it comes to policing operations. It is this mistaken view of the board's role that prevented members from asking the right questions to ensure proper civilian oversight during the G20 planning process. And I share that information with the members of the board so that you may discharge your statutory responsibilities. That's all the questions I have for the board, but with permission from the chairman, I do have some questions for the OPP.
Mr. Slack, I just wanted to let you know that there's deputations maximum 10 minutes. I've allowed it to continue on, so I have no problem in that regards. But before you get into the questions to the OPP, just so that our board members are aware, this issue falls with bylaw. So it's Norfolk County that deals with these illegal cannabis issues. Is that correct? Vice Chair Huffman?
That is correct.
And is it also correct that bylaw has two bylaw enforcement officers plus a full-time employee that looks after the issue of cannabis?
That I can't be certain of. I don't want to speak out of turn, so I don't know if it's actually two or not. It would, those questions can be directed. It's unfortunate we probably should have had Mr. Milson here in attendance at this meeting to answer some of those questions to be certain. I don't want to misquote anything.
If I may, Vice Chair Huffman, we have Board Secretary Olson's hand up, and I believe she has something to say.
Thank you through the chair. So I would like to have some corrections with respect to that statement. And we do have our bylaw supervisor, Jim Milson, in attendance today. So if he could provide the breakdown of what is county responsibility, what is OPP responsibility, and what is responsibility of other levels of government in relation to this matter, I think that would provide very good clarity.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. I didn't know he was in attendance. I didn't see him when we did roll call.
So Mr. Slack, before we get to your questions of the OPP, I would like to ask some questions in reference to Norfolk County and Bylaw. So since we have a representative from Bylaw, Mr. Milson, if you can kind of clarify and just guide us. I know that we've been through this before, but I need just some clarity and what has happened. Some of the information that has been sent to us has been last minute, so I've read over it, but we need some clarification. I mean, it's very clear that every ward is represented here, and the issue seems to be one that keeps daunting us and keeps coming back and back and back. So hopefully we can ask for a possible resolution to council on this issue. So with that, Mr. Milson, you have the floor, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I came as an observer. I'm unprepared with notes, but I'll do my best to answer some of the questions here. In terms of bylaw enforcement for cannabis in Norfolk County, in 2018, Council approved cannabis to be grown here by designated growers and put that in Norfolk County zoning bylaw. There's a number of parts to the Norfolk County zoning bylaw regarding cannabis, but essentially we deal with two different issues. One is the proximity of where cannabis is grown to residential use. And the other is the failure to comply with a site plan control through our planning department. So when a potential grower is approved by Health Canada to grow for other people who have licenses, up to four licenses at one location, there's a number of things they have to comply with Health Canada. And they're also, for the designated growers, encouraged to comply with local bylaws. Whereas with licensed producers, it's mandatory. So very few, to my knowledge, of the designated growers have come to Norfolk County to seek guidance and advice through the planning department on what they need to comply with at their location. Depending on the type of location and where it is to residential, there's either a 150-meter setback from residential when there's carbon filtration in place, or a 300-meter setback when there's no filtration in place. And what's happened with a number of the people who've bought in Norfolk County, bought older farms and greenhouse areas, they bought too close to residential. And this has caused some of the complaints to come to us because of odor, some with lighting, but certainly it's the nuisance issues that Norfolk County bylaw deals with. I want to make it clear for several times now that I've had to discuss this with council and with PSB, we do not investigate criminality. There has to be a clear understanding of this. The Ontario Provincial Police and all police services in Ontario and Canada investigate criminality of cannabis. Criminality involves overgrowing. That's what makes it criminal, or growing without a license. When it comes to bylaw, we deal with those two zoning issues. So COVID slowed us down, and illness within our unit slowed us down. But we have had some extremely good success, actually. I don't mean to disagree with the speaker, but I would say we're 180 degrees from his position, at least from the county perspective. There's been 124 known sites that we've had documented. I haven't had any new reported for getting close to a year. We're under 40 that haven't been dealt with yet. And a lot of those are seasonal growers outside who grow in the hoop greenhouses, so they can't grow through the wintertime. We have memory serve, I sorry, I don't have my notes, but something in the order of 60 or 70 people, individuals or companies charged, well over 100 charges, almost $100,000 in fines, 10 court orders not to grow. And we continue to work with our justice partners, the OPP, on sharing intelligence. So it's not a matter that we're not engaged. I'd say we're extremely engaged in our community with cannabis. All that with one cannabis investigator and a part-time investigator on the shoulder seasons when it's not really busy in the winter or the summertime. So we have one of the other 4 officers who expressed an interest in learning a bit more about it, and also some succession planning is put in place for that person when the main investigator retires. We have that knowledge base. So essentially I can say we have 1.5 investigators, but that single investigator continues to be very, very busy. Most of the investigating he's done through the summer and the fall has now resulted in a winter's full of court preparation and getting ready for court appearances for the charged people. So I know it's a very long-winded answer to a simple question, I assume, but if there's anything else I can answer on behalf of Bylaw, I would be glad to do that. Just want to reiterate too that we keep in constant dialogue with our OPP partners, both with the Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team, which is a provincial team that I think it's comprised of at least 7, maybe 8 or 9 police agencies, including the OPP. And so there's a representative officer from each of those agencies, and they're very, very busy folks. Like, we've worked on, I think, 4 warrants with them here over the last couple of years. Some of those based on intelligence we provided, to be honest, that allowed them to get those warrants at the last minute. But they're very busy folks. I don't mean to speak for them, but they're responsible from an area, at least from Niagara down to where the inspector's from Leamington, where it's very busy with cannabis down there as well. And so there's huge cannabis issues, criminality-wise, within Southern Ontario that this Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team deals with. Occasionally, they will ask us to let us know when they're doing a warrant. We'll piggyback with them. Every time we do a warrant, or we provide information that gets a warrant, we are there on behalf of Norfolk County and Norfolk County Bylaw. The very last thing I want to add is we don't just go with Bylaw. We're going with fire. We're going with our building department. We're now going with our planning department. When we go in and do these visits, we've done site visits without a warrant just to confirm what's been grown, which has actually resulted in charges on at least one occasion last December. I cannot get into a lot of information, but the last thing I want to say is this, is that Health Canada has, in fact, been liaising with Norfolk County. And I'm not to pat ourselves in the back, but it's due to the leadership with cannabis in Ontario that's resulted in a direct communication from them to us wanting to become involved. I can't get involved in specifics, but that's an ongoing discussion. And the same holds true with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, where we sit as a member partner and provide information and liaise with other municipalities who are also growing. And they've also looked to our investigator for advice on our investigation. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Milson. Are there any questions of the board members of Mr. Milson? I have one question. So what I want to understand, so odor and site plan, those are your 2 issues.
No, sir, it's setbacks from residential and site plan control.
And how is the communication between Norfolk County Bylaw, which is yourself, and the OPP locally, Norfolk OPP?
I have no other word but strong. That's where I came from. I had Staff Sergeant Fashing's position before I retired. I was also an undercover officer. I was a drug investigator for a while. I know many of the players in West Region, and that's one of the reasons I was brought on board for this position, is because of that connection with the OPP. It's a solid, growing relationship, and it is with our cannabis investigator too, who has direct communication with their cannabis investigators.
Thank you, Mr. Milson. Mr. Slack, I'll put the floor back to you. And if you want to ask any questions of our chief or Mr. Milson, by all means, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I agree with what Mr. Milson just said is that it's the bylaw. And I will be one of the first to recognize that the officer they have from bylaw assigned to address illegal cannabis is working his tail off. That's not my issue. And I think as my questions evolve, you'll be able to, and the members of the board will be able to appreciate where my concern is. That is not my concern. Okay. If I can put some questions to the OPP. York Regional Police remind their residents illegal cannabis cultivation equals guns, gangs, meth, and organized crime. Inspector Johnson, would you agree with that statement, sir?
I'm sorry, that York Region has a plan to do that? I'm sorry.
York Regional Police impress and on their residents that they should be concerned about illegal cannabis cultivation because the illegal cannabis cultivation equals guns, gangs, meth, and then organized crime. And the reason for that, as it was explained to me by them, is that illegal cannabis is grown, processed, shipped south across the border, and in return, they don't get money, but in return, they get firearms and meth back. And so that is feeding the beast in the GTA and across Ontario. So that's where, to impress upon their residents, they should be concerned with illegal cannabis cultivation. They easily sum it up as by saying that illegal cannabis equals guns, gangs, meth, and organized crime.
If I may, I think that's a very broad-based statement, so I'm not prepared to stand behind that statement in generality.
That's fine, Inspector. On February 12th, 21, I spoke to Detective Inspector Jim Walker, member of the OPP, and at that time, head of the Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team. Detective Inspector Walker agreed with the point that I've made to members of council and to this police service board numerous times. The point is that individual operators of illegal cannabis grow-ups move into areas where they do not experience any pushback. Would you agree with Detective Inspector Walker?
Through your chair, no, I would not.
You do not agree with that statement?
Through the chair, if I can just interject, deputations at a committee meeting are meant to provide information and presentation to the board. It is not meant as an inquiry of questioning the board or guests to the board meeting. I would just provide caution to the board in how they receive deputations and the precedent they're setting by changing the deputation into an inquiry-based process today.
Board Secretary Olson, thank you very much. Mr. Slack, if you could just keep it simple, if you could, please. And then it will be up to the board, I think, to put a resolution here, to go back to council to get some answers here. Because I think what we need to do is understand what our mandate is and what council needs to do. We need some leadership on this.
Mr. Chairman, if that's the case, then I will read through some of the questions. If the members of the OPP choose to answer, or members of the board choose to answer, or members of council choose to answer, that'll be up to their discretion, I guess, then, if that's more satisfactory to you, sir.
How many questions are we speaking here of, Mr. Slack?
Got a couple more for the OPP, and then we've probably got 5 or 6 to the Councilor Huffman, since she's the only member of council that's sitting on the board today here.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Slack, and to the board members and to everyone present here, if we, as the Police Services Board, and with our mandate, put forth a resolution or possibly 2 resolutions to Norfolk County to address these questions and give us a clear insight on what's taking place. So I'm going to put that out to our board members. So I see Member Van Houten with his hand up. Please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was just listening to Mrs. Olson's suggestion in relationship to deputations. And the deputations, and it's even in our regulations, are done, they're usually a 10-minute, and it gives us an opportunity to learn more and ask any questions of use. So, you know, this is a very, very difficult scenario. And I think you highlighted it right out the beginning. I have the highest respect for your group and the citizens group and all the work that everybody's trying to do. This all got started with the federal legislation, which was an absolute mess. It was glaring loopholes, major disconnects, and I think you talked somewhat about that. Now, we got to do all we can do, and it hasn't been easy, and I know we're still waiting. You and I, if we'd seen the problems that the legislation caused, we'd have fixed them right away. Well, we're left in that scenario where that part of things, we're waiting. We'll have to wait till the legislation said 5 years after the 2018, so April 2023 is when and I heard they haven't even started on it yet, but you know, we're going to have some faith there. There's going to be some changes made there where we actually have a zone meeting. We have I think the chair, I know, and the committee and Mrs. Hoffman, the vice chair as well, we were trying to get some more dialogue there where we're amongst other boards, another 8 or 9 boards, or 9 boards in total. What I believe is most advantageous is that we kind of stay to the process that way, and we hear you. I mean, I understand the frustration completely, and we respect everything that the citizens are saying about this. We all want nothing to be illegal, and we all want to try to do what we can. So, you know, I'm here to learn and also to ask any questions and see what we can do from there, you know. So I'm hoping we're all friends in this room, you know, that we're, and I think that's the best way, you know, and if there's some shortcomings and there's some things that we can help and get done, you know, we'd like to try. Now, I understand the frustration because believe me, it's been quite messy from the start. Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if I'm out of order on what I'm saying here, but I think let's have a smooth deputation and ask the question. We're all on the same page overall. You know, we all want the same thing.
You're correct.
You know?
And we sense the frustration. We hear the frustration. We see it. Our hands are tied, but what we can do from a police services standpoint, because we do have our OPP on side, what we need to do is request leadership from our county. And I know that they're doing what they can. Can they do better? Yes. Can we do better? Yes. And I think what we all have to do is come to the table and come up with a resolution. And Vice Chair Huffman, I mean, I'll ask you to put on your council hat. What we're looking for is
actually Chair Santos, I can't put on my counselor hat. I'm here as a member of the Police Services Board. So what I will do with this is that when we have our next council meeting and the minutes from this Police Services Board meeting come forward, I will be bringing these concerns forward to council, but I can't just put my counselor hat on. I apologize for that, but that's not the protocol.
That's fair, Vice Chair Huffman. I appreciate that. Member Cruz, do you have any comments to this?
It sounds to me that obviously staffing is an issue with this particular issue in bylaw, and probably in the county as well. I mean, with more staff, would that help? But then with more staff comes the raising of taxes and so on and so forth. So I don't know what the resolution is here. I think we do hear Mr. Slack and the community with respect to this issue. It's a priority and a top priority. I'm learning very fast. So That's the only comment I have. I don't have any more questions because I understand the issue, but that's just the comment I have.
Thank you, Member Cruz. Mr. Slack, you've heard what our members have had to say. You've come to us. You've made it very clear on numerous occasions. I hear you loud and clear. I would like to put a resolution on the floor and take this information back to our Norfolk County Council and ask them to respond and shed some light. We've heard here from Mr. Milson, we've heard from yourself, we've heard somewhat from the OPP, but the question that I understand here is, you mentioned the word fear, and that concerns me. And I've heard that before when it has been brought to our attention with regards to cannabis cultivation or illegal cannabis cultivation. And yes, the numbers are high, there is no doubt here, but I think what we need to do is to forward this to Norfolk County via resolution and ask them to clearly address these issues and your questions. And we can be the vessel to that. Are the board members on side with that? If a resolution is put forth, because I mean, it's very clear that Vice Chair Huffman is saying that these minutes and the information will go to council. I think they need to be highlighted, and we need to focus on this. This is a very important issue. Mr. Slack?
The problem I have here, Mr. Chairman, is that we've gone through the dance for 5 years now. And I appreciate the time is precious. Your time is precious. Possibly to facilitate this, allow me to read to you some of the points that I have here, which will explain why we've come to you asking for 3 resolutions, and that might solve your problem for you maybe, because the issue has not been addressed. There is definitely a distinction between bylaw and criminality. And if I am permitted to read you some information here, you'll be able to, I think, differentiate what has happened, what should be happening, and possibly even raise some questions why there hasn't certain things has not happened thus far. Keeping in mind, in 2018, Councillor Mike Columbus said in an open council meeting, when this issue was raised, Norfolk County is going to be known as the cannabis capital of Canada. Well, here we are, and no one has done anything to step up and address the issue. And that includes the OPP. Sorry, Inspector, but that includes the OPP. And if you allow me to read some facts into, you'll be able to see where I come from. And frustration, I'm not frustrated. I'm frustrated by the process. You imagine being a resident living beside one of these illegal grow-ops for the last 4 or 5 years and to witness nothing being done. How can we sit here as a community and allow that to happen? Deb France has a family member living across from a illegal grow-op. She witnessed on a Sunday afternoon an armed robbery go down within meters of her grandchildren. And what has been done since then? Nothing. When I meet with the inspector in July 23rd of this past year at the Simcoe BP detachment, 2 things came away from that meeting. Number one, the inspector downplayed the numbers that were provided to him by Simcoe Bylaw Department. Number two, when relating to the fear factor that we discussed, the inspector said, fear, fear, fear. I'm sick and tired of hearing about fear when addressing the people that live beside these illegal grow-ops. That is not addressing the problem. I'm sorry. These people, these residents that live beside illegal grow-ops deserve to be frustrated. They deserve better. I'm sorry. So if you allow me to read through my list of things, evidence, I will call it evidence, you'll understand why I come to you today and ask for 3 resolutions for this board. Do what you will with it, sir.
Mr. Slack, I will allow you to speak for 10 minutes. And if you can give us a clear understanding of these 3 resolutions, and then I'll put it up to the board for a vote, and we'll go from there. I think that's more than fair, and I know you have 10, if not 14 other people from different wards, so I will respect that time. Please and thank you. Is that okay with the board members? Are we good with that? Vice Chair Huffman, are we good with that?
I'm unclear. Are you saying that Mr. Slack is speaking for another 10 minutes?
Up to 10 minutes, yes. I'd like to hear these 3 possible resolutions that he's putting forth here to the Police Services Board.
All right.
Member Cruz, Member Van Houten, we're good with that?
I'd like to hear just the 3 resolutions.
Okay. Mr. Slack, the floor is yours.
Okay, where I'm coming from here is that between July 1st and October 15th, 2020, the OPP conducted 52 raids on illegal cannabis grow ops in Ontario. 3 raids in Norfolk County during that period of time were not initiated by the OPP. During 2021, there was 48 raids conducted by the OPP and other police services in Ontario. None of those raids were conducted in Norfolk County. A member of our group surveyed municipalities across South Central, Southwestern, Eastern Ontario. This survey showed Norfolk County has the highest number of legal grow-ups of any county. The next, the county running second in that list had 18. Big difference between them and Norfolk County. In Norfolk County, you'll have to understand, Inspector, that we have residents who have called the OPP with concerns regarding illegal cannabis cultivation. They're willing to provide information to assist the OPP, hoping they would take steps to address the issue of illegal cannabis cultivation or organized crime. Some residents, when they called in, were encouraged not to call the OPP. Some residents were told not to call the OPP. I have one example here, Inspector, where one resident was concerned about the noxious smell coming from an illegal grow up near their residence. He attended the site with the hope of speaking to individuals at this site to see what steps could be taken to reduce the odor issue. The resident entered the large building, observed the floor space covered with waist-high potted cannabis plants. The information was provided to a member of the street crime unit in Simcoe. The resident was willing to stick his neck out and allow their name to be used as an informant to facilitate getting a search warrant. The OPP did nothing. On March 16th, 2021, as Councillor Huffman, member of Norfolk Council, requested a staff report regarding what we proposed was a 5-point plan. You have to understand this 5-point plan of procedure is something that was used by York Regional Police in cooperation with the town of East Gwillimbury. On June 8th, the report was submitted to council, and there was 5 sections in that report that was flagged factually inaccurate and misleading at best by myself. I have encouraged members of council, including Councillor Huffman, to express my concerns about that report. And at no time would, and I should say that was shared with every member of council, not just Councillor Huffman, but the mayor and every councillor was provided that information, and no one asked for a statement verification with respect to that report. Mayor Chop and every member of council was encouraged to contact Councillor Scott Crone from East Gwillimbury. As I mentioned, this municipality has been effectively using this process and has firsthand knowledge of how effective this procedure is. Mayor Chop and every member of council were advised that Mr. Scott Crone was willing to speak to any member of Norfolk Council regarding this issue, but no one has contacted Councillor Scott Crone or Virginia Haxton, the mayor of town of East Gwillimbury. Part of this plan was identified when I spoke to the members of the York Regional Police. They said what they found beneficial of this 5-point plan, or the procedure, call it what you will, is it reduced time to investigate an illegal grow up. Less time equaled less resources, which equals less money. Mayor Chop and every councillor has been told about this. I've mentioned that to also the members of this board, and no one is interested in implementing that process, and I don't understand why. It's proven that it works. It's proven to save money. I'm taking it from North Regional Police. I don't see any reason why they would mislead me. But no one in Norfolk County is interested. In fact, the report, as I mentioned, that was submitted was factually inaccurate and misleading, and that benefit, for some reason, was missing. Nobody thought to mention that was identified as a benefit of that process. Just listen to what the residents of Norfolk are experiencing here. Councillor Huffman has asked for a staff report that East Gwillimbury has put into place. One benefit of that process was identified that it reduced the time to investigate and leave a grow up, which equals less money. Less resources equals less money. When concerns are raised with respect to the fact that this report was factually inaccurate and misleading, keeping in mind we've actually met with 2 councillors in person, Councillor Huffman being one of them. Third councillor was met with, meeting was conducted over a Zoom meeting. Everyone was given an opportunity to address this factually inaccurate report. No one has done anything. Norfolk County and Norfolk County Bylaw are not doing anything fundamentally similar to the approach taken by the town of East Gwillimbury as stated in this report. What conclusion should I, or every resident in Norfolk County, what conclusion should they draw when they hear this? I'll tell you what my conclusion is. I believe there was a collusion to have staff put together a factually inaccurate and misleading report to justify not implementing a process or a procedure that would effectively and efficiently address the issue of illegal cannabis cultivation in Norfolk. With every member of Norfolk County Council refusing to address the concerns raised by the residents, taxpayers, with respect to this factually inaccurate and misleading report, members of council have engaged in a cover-up. What else? What other conclusion can I come to?
Mr. Slack, if I can just stop you here, could we get to the resolutions? And the reason
Certainly.
being is as long as I've got the attention of the board members, the resolutions are basically the vessel that we can use to get to Norfolk County if we're all on site. So if you could, please, and thank you.
Certainly, sir. The resolutions that I've asked from this board this morning, based on the reasons I just explained briefly to you. Number 1, please serve as the board write an open letter to the members of Norfolk County Council requesting that they have third party investigate the contents and the authoring of a factually inaccurate and misleading staff report. If we're wanting to address the issue of illegal cannabis and we have a factually inaccurate staff report submitted to members of council, they're going to use that as to hopefully address the issue. But what hope do they have in addressing it when it's factually inaccurate, but at the same time, they have no desire to get to the bottom of it? Number 2, Police Services Board write an open letter to the Ontario Provincial Police and request an explanation why they have failed and continue to adequately address illegal cannabis cultivation in Norfolk County. The OPP are providing service to other areas in Ontario that is not being provided to the residents of Norfolk. I would ask that this letter be directed to headquarters in Aurelia, with copies directed to district headquarters in London. Number 3, this police service board established a list of priorities that include quantitative goals with respect to the enforcement of all federal statutes as relate to illegal cannabis cultivation in Norfolk. A list of priorities established by this board will guide this board and build in accountability for the OPP to ensure the issue of illegal cannabis cultivation and organized crime in Norfolk is adequately addressed by the OPP. I remind you, illegal cannabis cultivation equals guns, gangs, meth, and organized crime. Rather serious, I would think, in my opinion. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I do appreciate your time. It is a serious issue, and I realize I may have pressed the time limit here or the procedure methods, but I think hopefully I can impress upon you that it is a serious issue that's been put on the side, and I don't understand why it's been allowed to fester and grow. Detective Inspector Jim Walker for the OPP even admitted to me that he agreed with me.
Through the chair, there's 1 minute left.
These facilities grow. The operators move into the areas, the numbers will grow in areas that there's no pushback. And all due respect, there's been no pushback in Norfolk County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slack. So you've asked 3 questions with regards to 3 points or resolutions. I would ask Board Secretary Olson if you could just repeat Resolution 1 to the board.
Mr. Chair, maybe we could get a copy of that resolution that Mr. Slack read. Thank you.
Please and thank you. And then we'll leave it up to the board to vote. Thank you, Board Secretary.
Through the chair, if I just may, if you'll grant me
Yes,
an
go
opportunity
ahead.
to speak. I just want to say, as the managing staff member of the bylaw enforcement team at Norfolk County, I would just like to say that the comments made by the deputation are the deputation's opinion. I just want to make that very clear that from a staff perspective, we are very proud of the work that we are doing here with respect to cannabis. The reports that have gone to council, we have put a lot of work, a lot of investigation, and we believe are very factually sound. And I just wanted to let the board know that, again, it will be the board's call from the information that they've seen in the reports that we've provided, how they want to interpret that. But at this time, we stand behind the information that we've provided both to the Police Services Board and to County Council. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. So if you can read out the Resolution 1 that was brought by Mr. Slack, please, and thank you.
So the first resolution is that the Police Services Board write an open letter to the members of Norfolk County Council requesting that they have a third party investigate the contents and authoring of a factually incorrect, inaccurate, and misleading staff report.
I put that out to the board members. Board Member Van Houten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll relate back to some of the comments that I made earlier on. And, you know, we totally get the seriousness of this issue. I think we all do. But I don't see this is the way forward. So I don't want to be part of that resolution, these resolutions. Like we can, you know, your deputation, and we know how serious this all is. And as we move forward, we can do whatever we can. But I don't think this is the right way. I really don't. I just being upfront with you. But that's my honest opinion.
Thank you, Member Van Houten.
I think you get a lot more done, you know, just working a different way at it. Thank you.
So Just so that you're aware, Member Van Houten, we'll take each resolution and we'll vote on that, and that's more than fair.
I'm just being upfront ahead, because I won't be moving or seconding or voting for any of them.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Member Cruz?
I tend to agree with, excuse me, I tend to agree with Member Van Houten, and I would move that we accept Mr. Slack's deputation to be received as information, and then we go on from here. I don't think it's proper for us to move any of these individual recommendations or resolutions from Mr. Slack at this time. I believe we should receive the deputation as information at this time.
Thank you, Member Cruz. Vice Chair Huffman?
I second the motion to receive this information and move forward.
Okay. It's very clear what the board has basically called for. Mr. Slack, you've heard what the board members have had to say. I have to respect what they have had to say and do say. So with that, we have a motion to receive the deputation of Mr. Orville Slack on behalf of Debbie France for information. So do we have a mover and a seconder?
Through the chair, Board Member Cruz made that motion, and Vice Chair Huffman seconded that motion already.
All in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Mr. Slack, thank you very much for your presentation. Moving on to the agenda. Item number 7, we have 5 consent items today. Does any board member wish to pull any item for further discussion? And this, of course, is in the case record. I would like to ask some questions in reference to 7.2 in regards to the operational stats and highlights for February of 2022. So if we can, bear with me, I'll get my notes. And this question, of course, will be addressed to Chief Johnson. So just bear with me 1 second. So my question, Chief Johnson, is in regards to page 22 of the case record. So page 22, if I may, references, that's 22 of 107, references Norfolk Street, speeding, disobey traffic signals. There was a focus patrol, and that was up until February the 18th of 2022. Is that continuous or has that stopped?
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the focus patrol, so what the detachment has done was created a specific occurrence to deal with the specific issue, of which officers were recording their results, of which, for the record, for those who are in attendance, as a result of this, 6 officers dedicated 11 hours, a total of 9 charges were laid, 8 for speeding, and 1 failed to surrender insurance card. 3 warnings were issued, 1 being an amber light and 1 being an obstruct plate. Sorry. So for the purposes of a directed patrol, yes, that was has closed and can be opened at any other time. But I do know, in speaking, even though I've only been here a short time, I have spoke to our officers, our supervisors, and the management team, and I do know this remains a continued area of patrol, of which our officers will, as a routine, will be directing their patrols. We just did not have we've closed the focus patrol, which is more of a formality around the statistical gathering. At any given time, should there be a need, we can reopen it and gather more statistics, but it's just a process of which our officers, I don't want to say it's worthy, but they have to record all the data that they're doing. Whereas if they're doing work after the patrol is closed, it just goes about business.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Member
that was
Van Houten?
the area we had the deputation on, wasn't it? A couple meetings ago, or was that corner? Yeah.
Yeah, to answer Member Van Houten, that's correct. The issue was Highway 24, Norfolk Street North. So that has been addressed, and that's the question that I have. So that references what the chief has told us. Thank you very much, Member Van Houten.
Through the chief, or through the chair, if I may, Staff Sergeant Fashing, having historic knowledge, if I can ask him for input.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think one thing that's changed since our last meeting is we do now have a speed sign directed on Norfolk Street South now as you enter the town of Simcoe, which is alerting motorists to the posted speed limit, which I hope and we hope down the road will alleviate some pressure at this location. Thank you.
Chief to Staff Sergeant Fashing, thank you very much. I did receive a call stating that Norfolk Street North and Norfolk Street South, which is of course Highway number 24, have referenced that the signage has been up since Friday. So the neighbors are very content with that. So thank you very much for being part of that. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you'll notice them elsewhere throughout the county as well. So we're hoping some success in alleviating some of those pressures with these signs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant. The next question I have, if I may, Chief, is exhibit number 1, which of course is the OPP stats. On page 2 of 16, what caught my eye, and to the members of the board, is I noticed the overtime in the month of February basically doubled. So the question I have from the board members and myself to you, Chief, is could you just clarify why the overtime was doubled? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and obviously when I reviewed this, my attention drew to that. So I had done, not being here, obviously just being new, I've looked at that, and that is historically it's been under 900-ish. The 1,777 is a direct reflection to officers in response to the Ottawa incident. And so what has happened is, by virtue of our data collection, because officers were placed on standby and basically activated for response anywhere else in the province, there was overtime incurred. Through the data collection system, it shows up on municipal, but I've talked to Business Management Bureau, and that will there'll be a reconciliation that will not come back to the municipality. That will be a provincial cost. So although it shows up here, there will be a reconciliation that comes forward at a later date.
Thank you very much for that clarification. And the next question I have in the same exhibit number
Chair,
1
Chair
is.
Santos, I believe Board Member Cruz has a question on that.
Oh, sorry, Board Member Cruz, you have a question from that question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, I just have a comment through that question. As I was reading through the reports, I also noticed the increased overtime, and I thought it was because of the Ottawa incident, and I just wanted to, from my perspective and through you, Mr. Chair, to thank the OPP members, the sworn and civilian, who were deployed to Ottawa and Windsor and other locations for the protests, and thank the members and thank the members who worked extra hours to cover the members that were deployed to those areas, and also thank their families for having to live through the deployments there. Their efforts are not lost on us, and we just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Member Cruz. Chief.
Thank you, Member Cruz, and I will ensure, yes, we did deploy members to both ends of our province, as well as you acknowledge, we had them on standby here, should there be another incident, but we will ensure that that message, your message is received back to our members. Thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you again, Member Cruz. Chief, the next question I have, Exhibit 1 on page 16 of 16, is I noticed in February of this year that sexual assaults have increased 83%, and assaults have also increased. This is somewhat alarming to me because last year we had 6 and this year we had 11. And of course, assaults we had 34 and now we had 42. Is there any light that could be shed on this issue?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Page 6 of 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can tell, specifically, no, I can tell you sexual assaults are a topic of conversation at our every Monday morning meeting. We have a command meeting and we talk about that. There are different levels of sexual assault, but it is very concerning to us as an operational position. And aside from education and awareness, it becomes very difficult to prevent when you talk about prevention and other tactics in which we can use. Presence alone, a lot of times sexual assaults are happening in the absence of, other people or police officers and such. So both assaults and sexual assaults are so difficult to actively prevent. However, as I say, working with our collaboration with other community groups such as the Women's Shelter and other stakeholders in the community for greater awareness and such is what we're trying to do. But I do know our criminal investigators are very concerned about that, as those higher numbers.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any other questions of that question to our board members? No? Okay, my last question of that exhibit number 1 is on page 10 of 16. So, Chief, if I may, the reference of the big 4 traffic-related charges. I noticed in the report for February, in regards to speeding, seatbelt impaired, and distracted driving, nothing seems to be there. There's no numbers with the big 4, and I know that the OPP, of course, have referenced the big 4. So if I could get an answer to that, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, these reports are, as good as the data collection are able to provide them. And what ends up happening, as you'll see at the very bottom, there's data contained within is dynamic in nature and numbers change. There's a quotation there. And so at the time that this is a moment in time when it's run off, and so it shows 0 or it shows no numbers, but I can assure you that there are numbers there. And coming from my previous chair in regional traffic and marine, I can tell you what unequivocally Norfolk detachment is one of the detachments that is a leader in enforcement productivity. And traffic stops. And even though it's not in here, I can tell you that even year to date, I think we're 24% higher in traffic stops of our officers over last year. Just last week alone, we were 2% higher. So I know without a doubt, our officers and their supervisors are out on the road making a difference, dealing with the traffic enforcement. Unfortunately, it's not captured in here, and I will do all we can to make sure that in the probably in the month of April when we report, the January and February marks will always be a month or two behind due to data collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for that answer. Okay, so moving on, I would like board members to bring everyone and to our chief to the correspondence from Health Canada re Cannabis.
So, Mr. Chair, if I might,
yes.
We're done with 7.2. Perhaps we'll receive and file that.
I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so we're still on item number 7. I just want to focus on that letter that we received from Health Canada, the 6-month waiting. I just wanted to comment on that. So if I can ask everybody to turn to page, I believe it's 47. So page 47 to 50. Is a response that we received from Health Canada. And this, of course, being a 6-month waiting for a response. I just wanted to comment that I'm not too impressed with the response that we received from Health Canada. We did ask questions of Health Canada, and we didn't get the questions answered. What we basically got, from what I understand, was a cut and paste letter that was put forth by I believe Joanne Gara, the Director General. So I just wanted to make that note that unfortunately it's taken 6 months for us to get that letter. But those are my comments, and I just wanted to add that. Councillor Huffman, or I'm sorry, Vice Chair Huffman.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Just following up, I recall that you had mentioned that there was some dialogue with our MP, Ms. Lewis, and that she was going to speak in the House. Has that taken place?
Vice Chair Huffman, that's actually a very good question. It was my understanding that there was a conversation with one of Health Canada, one of the bureaucrats, not with the Minister of Health. So I really don't have an update with regards to that conversation or what took place. What I only have here is, of course, this letter, but I will definitely look into that and find out what our local MP did on the issue of cannabis. And just so that everyone's aware, I mean, we heard the frustration from Mr. Slack. We also are very clear of what the federal government has mandated to our municipalities. We also heard from Mr. Milson today of what they're doing and the best that they're doing from a bylaw perspective. So, I mean, the communication is definitely there. The question becomes is, as we heard, is looking for leadership. So with that, we're definitely not getting it from the federal government. So I will move on. So with that, I will ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the consent items that were presented. If I could get, okay, moved by Provincial Member Huffman, or sorry, Provincial Member Van Houten, and seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. Okay, and all in favor? Perfect. Okay, so reports that are deferred from the previous meeting, item number 8. We have one item that was deferred from the previous meeting, and that was 8.1, the discussion community policing committees. So Vice Chair Huffman, I'll leave that with you, please, and thank you.
Okay, actually, it's all good now. My concern at the time was, as a member of the Police Services Board, wondering why I was reading in the newspaper about the possible disbandment of this committee, whereas nothing had come forward to the Police Services Board. So just feeling that there was a break in communication, but it sounds like all of that has been resolved, and I'm glad to see that, and look forward to joint communication between PSB and the community policing.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. May I have a motion to receive the discussion of the Community Policing Committee for information? Motion made by Member Van Houten and seconded by Member Cruz. All in favor? Yeah, that was carried, so we'll move on. So we're on to item number 9 of the case record. We have 6 items for consideration under this section of the agenda. We will start out with Member Cruz in reference to an update on police governance and crisis workshop that he attended, I believe was March the 3rd of this year. So Member Cruz, the floor is yours, please and thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. On March the 3rd this year from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., I attended virtually a roundtable webinar, which was sponsored by the Canadian Association of Police Governance and the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards. There were over 200 attendees, and we heard from a number of panelists from a cross-section of experience on newsworthy developments in police governance that took place over the last several weeks and several months. And I think we all recognize that the Police Service Board issues with Ottawa and Thunder Bay recently, they were mentioned, and there were other issues that major police service boards had. Hamilton, Woodstock, and there were a number. They were all brought up and discussed very lightly. I must say that the format from the panelists were, I thought, a very high level number of individuals. There were 10, and the format was that each panelist got 5 to 10 minutes to make some comments on the issue of police governance in crisis. And then after the comments were made, there was a discussion amongst the panelists with respect to the comments they made. And then after the discussion through the panelists, then the attendees were allowed to ask a number of questions. And it was 2.5 hours long. It could have gone a lot longer, but it didn't, and I thought it was great. It was very informative. I learned a lot, and some of the comments that were made from the panelists, I jotted down in point form that the boards needed to be independent. New board members still need training. One panelist mentioned that, especially in Ottawa, there was offshore leadership in Ottawa. Perhaps there was an intelligence failure there. I thought that got more into an operational side of things, but the comment was made. Another panelist mentioned the independence that police service boards should have. They should be trained and supported. There should be continuous improvement for board members. Another panelist mentioned that you have to, or boards must hold the chiefs of police accountable for actions in their community. One panelist mentioned that there was a collapse in Ottawa. There was lawlessness in that community for 3 weeks. The political interference on the board and with council was evident. Boards must lead at a strategic level, a high level, and not get involved in any operations. There was a mention of tier policing like Quebec was needed. I'm not familiar with the tier policing in Quebec, but that was the comment that was made. One of the panelists was a native leader, and she mentioned that the boards must focus on the community well-being, not just policing, but the community well-being. Another panelist who was the chair of the Toronto Police Services Board for 10 years mentioned that police governance is not in crisis. It works as intended, and police they are mostly under-resourced. They are always under the public gaze and always under public pressure, same as the police service boards. There is a problem on the way the police boards are set up, but that comes around as happenstance, he said. The appointments are political, both provincial and local, he mentioned. And he mentioned that if the relationship between board members and the community and board members and council are good, the resolutions will be good. And if the resolutions, or if the relationships are not good, resolutions will not be found. One panelist mentioned that they needed more consistency in how PSB members are appointed and trained, and the need for more independence on the board, independence from politics. Another member mentioned they don't believe police oversight is in crisis. That was another member agreed with the earlier one. The system is sound, the bones are good, and there must be support for police boards, and there are creative solutions out there. You just have to find them. I must say too, the panelists were there were lawyers, there were an ex-police chief, a native leader, members of big municipal police service boards, and very good, a number of university professors. So they were all good comments that they were being made. Some of the panelist discussions, they all came down to the appointment process of board members, training of board members, the competency level of board members that are selected, and some of the questions that were asked well, in some areas it's hard to recruit board members, and there was some comments around that. Rather than the focus needs to be towards consensus building and compromising to benefit the community, to provide adequate and effective policing, and then it went on from there. All good comments. The two major takeaways that I got from it were that all police service boards requires independence from politics. They must be politically independent, and two, the board members, the selection of board members and competency are the key with respect to selecting the board members. They require training, independence, a knowledge of police governance, and that will help them be effective and efficient board members, which will flow down to the community safety issue. I will forward a copy of the webinar link to the chair for his edification and distribution as he sees fit later today.
Thank you, Member Cruz.
Yeah.
Member Cruz, I was just wondering, you referenced other police services boards. The one question I have is, we're under Section 10, and the police services boards that you mentioned, Ottawa, Woodstock, and Hamilton, they're all municipal. Was there anything that came out of Section 10 policing in our province?
Not a lot. Most of the panelists and discussion evolved around the larger municipal police services boards. There was one of the panelists was a member of the OPP, a deputy director, Rachel Huggins. She was a member of the OPP. She was a panelist, but no, there wasn't a lot specifically on Section 10 boards.
Okay, thank you, Member Cruz. Any other questions of Member Cruz? Okay, thank you once again for attending and representing Norfolk County Police Services Board. So
it was my pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Member Cruz. Having that, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the updated information in reference to the Police Governance in Crisis Workshop, please and thank you. Oh, Vice Chair Huffman has moved, seconded by Member Van Houten. Thank you very much. All in favor? That was carried. Okay. Sorry, before we move on, is it okay if we take a 10-minute break? Please and thank you. Is that fair? All right. So we'll see everyone in
That
10.
sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Board Secretary Olson. Good morning, everyone. It's 11:20. We're back on. We'll go back to the agenda of the case record, and we go back to 9.2. We have here Chair Santos' update in reference to March the 8th, 2022 deputation to Norfolk Council. Just so that everybody is aware, this, of course, was a resolution that Norfolk Police Services Board put forth. I attended council on the 8th of March. And with that, these were the concerns that were brought to us in reference to Norfolk Street North, Highway number 24. It was my understanding that there was a motion brought by Councillor Huffman, which of course is our vice chair, that these concerns of the PAB be taken to the traffic committee, then to council. That was seconded by Councillor Martin. So with that, basically, I did follow through with the resolution that was requested of me. That was resolution number 6 on page 5 of 107. So all I can basically say, it's moved on. The community, or let's just say the residents of that area, are very content. We heard this morning from Staff Sergeant Fashing that the radar devices have been implemented in that area. And again, that's a bonus, good timing. So that's worked to our benefit. So taking that into account, we'll move on. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive that updated information that was provided as a deputation? I see Vice Chair Huffman. She's moved, seconded by Member Cruz. All in favor? And that's carried. So we will move on. Staff report COA 22-03 Police Services Board Protocol Bylaw. I'm going to ask Mrs. Olson to present this report, and then once she presents the report, I'll leave it up to the board to ask questions.
Thank you, Chair Santos. So through the chair to the board, before you today is a revised procedure bylaw for the Police Services Board. The Police Services Board current procedure bylaw is from 2003, so it is very outdated and is in time for refresh. Procedure bylaws are really a way to allow the board to manage their meetings for efficiency and effectiveness, and really outlays how agendas are set, the way a meeting flows, the rights and privileges of the members, how we receive deputations, how presentations are done, as well as to make sure that the meetings run on time and on schedule, because we recognize, especially in today's environment, that everybody has busy lifestyles, busy schedules, and we need to be able to make our decisions in an effective manner. So before you is a very comprehensive procedure bylaw that some of the members of this board saw last January. It was intended to come forward in April of 2020. Unfortunately, due to a number of staff changes and restructuring in the county clerk's office, it unfortunately got delayed. So we've made some tweaks since that last one, not a lot, just some minor things. And then one other thing that is not currently in the procedure bylaw that I just wanted to bring to the board's attention in regards to deputations, that if the board would want an amendment to this, we could add this in. But most procedure bylaws, when it comes to deputations or presentations being presented to a board, will limit deputations to new information. So they don't want repeat deputations coming to every meeting unless new information is being presented. If this board is favorable in having deputations come as much as they want on the same or similar matters, that is the board's desire. However, if the board wants to have tools to be able to limit that, we could add one additional clause in that would read something such as: deputations shall only present significantly new information. Repetitive deputations by any person, group, or organization will not be considered by the Police Services Board. So in your agenda today, I just want you to go to section 18 of attachment 2. So in your agenda, it's page 11. So that is really with respect to the hearing of public deputations. As you will note, it is significantly more comprehensive than our current 2003 bylaw. It is standard to what many procedure bylaws have across municipalities, as well as we did a scan of a number of Police Services Board, not just Section 10, but the Section 23 as well. But it is a standard best practice in procedural appropriateness. So like I said, it gives the board the tools to be able to limit deputations, to provide flexibility to deputations, as well as to ensure that the deputation comes before the board to provide information only. Deputations are not intended to, direct questions at boards or any of the representations. And they're also at the very bottom, which is in section, just going to go 18.8, talks about deputations. So deputations shall not speak disrespectfully of any person. They shall not use offensive words or language. They should not speak on any subject matter other than the subject for which they have received approval to address the board. They should not speak concerning the conduct or make a complaint against a member of Norfolk County Detachment of the OPP, staff, or members of the board, and they should not disobey the rules of procedure or a decision of chair. And that just provides the board the opportunity to make sure that the meetings stay respectful and professional in nature. So if there's any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, staff is asking the board to approve the procedure bylaw either as presented or with the amendment as I read.
Vice Chair Huffman.
Thank you, Chair Santos. I would like to approve the amendment.
Okay. Now, Member Van Houten, you had your hand up before Mr. Cruz. Was that? Sorry, Member Cruz?
I will second
Seconding?
Member Huffman's amendment motion.
Through the chair, can I just clarify, Vice Chair Huffman, is that approving the procedure bylaw as presented, however, also including the amendment I suggested?
Yes, including the amendment you suggested. Yeah, sorry about that, Teresa. I wasn't clear.
Could I just have that amendment repeated, please, and thank you, before we have it seconded, please?
So the amendment would be that deputations shall only present significantly new information. Repetitive deputations by any person, group, or organization will not be considered by the Police Services Board.
Okay, thank you. So that was seconded by Member Cruz.
That's correct.
Okay, all in favor? Well, we have discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had one question. First of all, I thought reading this over, it was very very thorough and very clear. I think, and you could see the best practices involved at all. The one change that, and I just have a question about it. I'm not sure if we have flexibility around that. It says that the time limit to call a special meeting, you have to be at least 48 hours, I believe now. It's changed from 24 to 48. Is there a situation we could get into? Like, for example, I'm sure in Ottawa, they had to call meetings. I hate to say that, but it had to be meetings called in short order. Like, can we still actually get around that? Or I didn't want to.
Good question.
I didn't want to have the chief of police and the chair being tied in
Sure.
case they needed to, and everyone's agreement and available.
So through the chair, the reason I've amended that is currently our current procedure bylaw for Norfolk County Council is 48 hours. The reason I wanted to change the Police Services Board was more from an administrative purpose. Now, I'm not aware of many items that would come before the Police Services Board that would need to be made a decision of in 24 hours. And the reality is the staffing resources that I have available to be able to turn around meetings in 24 hours is very challenging, because it's not just as simple as calling a meeting. You have to provide notification to the public. You have to create agendas. I need to have staff available. I am also, our team is also operating 3 council meetings a month, a Board of Health meeting, and 12 advisory committees. So it was really just to give us some breathing room to know that, if there was by chance a a emergency meeting, we would have the ability to call that, but I just don't know that there would be many matters where 24 hours notice would be required.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're right. Like, we've never had it yet, but and there's a way around. If it is a true emergency, we could still deal with it, even with the policy at 48 hours. At least we can try to keep it to give them enough time to give at least that 48-hour.
Yeah, we would have provisions, and the board can also, they always have the ability to waive their procedural bylaws, you know, by majority vote if it was needed. So that ability is there. It's just we don't want to make it a standard practice if possible.
If I can just add to that, it's my understanding through the Police Services Act that if there is an urgency that we should have, and we do have up to 12 hours, as long as there is a posting on the door of the OPP stating that this emergency that the Norfolk Police Services Board needs and must meet within that 12-hour, and it could happen at any time. We don't know. Certain issues do happen and have happened in the past, but under Section 10 policing, that is my clear understanding of what the Police Services Act does state. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the last interview that we had with our member Ron Leclerc from the Solicitor General's office, there was a mention of that. So just to rehash that, okay?
And through the chair, just to clarify, the Police Services Act would trump our procedure bylaw. So the provincial legislation, we can't contravene that. So anything provision in the act would take precedent if required.
But does that clarify, Member Van Houten? Okay, thank you. Okay, so back to this, we had a seconder. So any questions? No other questions? My question is, all in favor? Okay, very good. It's carried. So we'll move on to 9.4, the Ontario Association of Police Services Board 2022 Spring Conference. Board Secretary, Ms. Olson, will you be presenting this report to us, please?
Thank you, through the chair to the board. So the Ontario Association of Police Services Board Spring Conference is coming up in May. The budget for the Police Services Board has previously allowed for 2 members to attend in person. That budget still remains there. In the past, it has typically been the chair and another member of the board. The chair and I met a few weeks ago, and it was brought to my attention that there's actually a virtual attendance allowed for this year's conference as well. And so we were just kind of throwing it out there to see if there was any appetite to provide a little bit more flexibility to allow a few more members to attend. So I understand the chair would like to attend in person to the conference. So that would allow us to have 2, possibly 3 attend virtually if required. Unless there's only one other member that wants to attend, then it could be a choice of that member. So just looking for direction from the board.
Okay, thank you, Board Secretary Olson. Member Van Houten.
Just a suggestion, just a thought. And actually, I thought I'm the right guy making a suggestion here, because actually that date don't work out for me anyway. But these conferences, they have huge benefits to the people that go there, and especially when they're in person. You just can collaborate with so many different people. You're going to meet people from, all over the province, that type of thing, right? There's a lot to be gained from that. So my suggestion would be, like, the reason why I can say it, because I can't make that date anyway, so it's easy to do. I would suggest 2 people in person. I really do. And it'd be nicer for the chair to have somebody else with them from the board, and so I don't know who's available, but that would be my suggestion as number 1, rather than the virtual isn't as good as in person, not even close.
Member Van Houten, thank you very much for that comment. I definitely agree with that. I put that to the board. Vice Chair Huffman, Member Cruz, any comment?
I agree. I think the in-person attendance is much more valuable than the virtual aspect. So I would support that 2 people attend in person.
Thank you for your comments. Member Cruz, any comment?
I concur.
So through the chair, we need to designate who those 2 people are.
Okay, so whoever is interested may put up their hand. I'll put my hand up. I'd be interested. I can definitely, if someone's willing and wanting to come along, we can drive up together and come back together. That's my view. If anyone's interested.
Could I get a few more details on it just to refresh my memory, please? The dates and the location?
So it's in Toronto,
Okay, just 1 second.
May 26th and May 27th in Toronto. I believe they're both all-day events.
I understand it's a 2-day conference in Toronto. They start early in the morning. I did attend one in London about 2 years ago, and it's paramount. You meet every walk of life on every board from municipal to Section 10, and the connections are just amazing. Just to find out what's happening. I mean, the issues we have here in Norfolk are pretty similar to the ones that are happening out in the Windsor excess area and otherwise throughout the province. So by all means. So
Member Cruz, are you interested in attending?
Actually, I was going to defer to you, Madam Vice Chair.
Tentatively, I would be very interested. I just need to coordinate with a couple schedules, and then I can send confirmation of my decision out by email. Hopefully, I can do that by the end of the day.
okay, I'm good with that.
Okay, so in the motion, if we can just amend the motion to say that Chair Santos and Vice Chair Huffman be authorized to attend. And then I would just maybe throw in a clause there that if for some reason somebody cannot attend, that then another member be provided that opportunity.
22, 35 Ontario Association of Police Services Board, Cultivation, and the following for 10, ASP. Board members be for Santos, by the way, of course, possibly having Vice Chair Huffman attend. So all in favor?
No, just, could we just, with the motion, have the chair and vice and Mr. Cruz as alternate?
And we need a mover and seconder for
Yeah,
that.
and we need to do that by April 1st because there's an early bird special and I'm Dutch.
Okay, perfect. So board members, Chair George Santos, Vice Chair Huffman, and by the way, Mr. Cruz in attendance. So if we can have a mover. Or sorry, alternate. Alternate being Mr. Cruz. Moved by provincial appointee Van Houten. Seconded by member Cruz. All in favor? Okay, that's been carried and we'll move on. 9.5 Community Policing Committee. I'll leave this up to Board Secretary Ms. Olson. You'll be presenting this report.
Thank you, through the chair to the board. So as the board may recall, in December at the December Police Services Board meeting, staff did bring a report to provide some feedback that the Community Policing Committee had not been able to meet quorum after a number of meetings, and that if that continued, that we would have to consider disbanding the board. Since that time, there was news articles put out, which I believe it got the board member, the committee members engaged. We worked to put together a new meeting. We had full attendance, almost full attendance from the committee, and we had a very productive meeting that kind of got all of us on the same page. As previously discussed, the county clerk's office has gone through a significant staffing change in 2021. And most of the staff there were not involved in 2020 when this Community Policing Committee Advisory Board was established. So because of COVID and the community policing not being able to meet, this first meeting was really an opportunity for all of us to review the terms of reference, which are pretty comprehensive, and we all need to wrap our heads around what that looks like for that committee and for the board as well as the OPP reps. So what happened at that meeting was the committee decided to develop a subcommittee to actually go through the terms of reference, to review it, and to bring back suggestions at the next committee meeting to determine if we need to amend those or what that looks like for this committee. So we will keep the board updated on that. Part of the process of reviewing this was understanding that the Police Services Board, through authorization of Norfolk County Council, established the board based on memberships that were put forward, and a motion was passed to approve a number of committee members. We discovered that one of the committee members' names who was appointed is incorrect, and so we need to correct that on the record. As well, there is a committee member who has been showing up at all the meetings who thought they were an appointed member but are not officially appointed. But as they have been a very engaged member of the committee, we would just ask that the board appoint them in that process. As I noted during the deputation today, as it is an advisory committee of county council, all membership has to be done through the county. So the county puts out the recruitment information, the recruitment comes back, and the board selects the member, but that has to be done through a process. So if there is indeed a resignation from a member, we can get that put out shortly and bring forward a report to the Police Services Board at the next meeting and to council to appoint a new member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no questions, may I have a mover that the staff report Community Policing Committee be received for information, and that the Norfolk County Police Service Board appoint Mr. Dan Avey as Ward 7 representative? Is that correct? And further, that Marion Clucky be appointed at large member of the Community Policing Committee for the remainder of the designated term, which I believe is 2023. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I don't have it in front of me, but some of the board members, their terms expire at the end of this year and some at the end of 2023. So the at-large members had a different term. Theirs may expire at the end of this year, but I just left it in there so that we follow that process.
Okay, great. So I'll take out the 23, and if I could have a mover and a seconder. So moved by provincial appointee Van Houten. And do we have a seconder? Seconded by member Cruz. All in favor? Okay, very good. So we'll move on. 9.6 of the agenda. Action funds account.
Thank you. So through the chair, this is the auction funds account that was set up by the Police Services Board with respect to OPP auctions and other miscellaneous items that come through that. So just a couple things. That account requires signatories of the current chair and vice chair and needs to be changed whenever those positions change. We had an election in January and we have a new vice chair. However, in order to make the signatures change, we need to have a formal motion by the board and the minutes signed and approved for the bank to make that change to allow Vice Chair Huffman to be on the signing authority. The other thing I just wanted to give the board a heads up on is that again, as I'm fairly new with the county, we're doing a review of all of our practices and procedures, and we will be bringing forward at the May meeting some information and recommendations with respect to the Police Services Board finance, the budget, and the account provisions. But that comprehensive report will be coming forward so that we can get everything more efficient for both the board members and the county in managing that process.
Okay, thank you, Board Secretary Olson. Any questions? Member Van Houten?
Just a quick one. On our last meeting, we had a little bit of discussion about we had, I think, donated $2,000 to Crime Stoppers. We weren't sure if we were going to go up a bit. We didn't know for sure the numbers in here, but I guess we'll know more the further budget, right, too? If we can do more there, we kind of have to make a decision on that one. Maybe is it better in the next meeting? I don't know.
Very, very good question, and I'll pose that to our board secretary, Mrs. Olson.
Through the chair, what I would kindly or respectfully ask of the board is to wait until the May meeting, because there is some very important information that we need to provide with the board, and there's been maybe a little bit of misunderstanding of the budgeted amounts with respect to donations to organizations, and so we're going to bring that fulsome report in May, and at that time, if the board wants to determine how they can proceed, if they can proceed with additional donations to the organization, we can do so at that time. Thank you.
So just to answer that question, the $2,000 was sent to Crime Stoppers, was it not, of Norfolk?
That is correct. $2,000 has been sent to Crime Stoppers for 2022 donation.
Thank you. So no other questions? Seeing that there's no other questions, may I have a mover that the staff report of CAO 22-043 Action Funds account be received for information, and that the Police Services Board authorize Chair Santos and Vice Chair Huffman as authorizing signatories on the account, and that Mr. Kelvin Klingberg, Deputy Clerk, as account delegate, and further that the Police Services Board authorize any communications from the bank related to this account, including bank statements, to be sent to Norfolk County Office as a designated mailing address and or email address as a designated by the Norfolk County Clerk's Office. So with that, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Vice Chair Huffman, seconded by Provincial Appointee Van Houten. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. We're moving on along. Correspondence arising from previous business. Item 10. Do we have any correspondence arising from previous business? Seeing none, we will move on to the next meeting. The next meeting of the Police Service Board here in Norfolk will be Wednesday, May the 18th of 2022, commencing at 9 a.m. We're all good with that? Very good. I will need a motion to adjourn. And so the motion brought on by Member Cruz, seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. The meeting's adjourned. All in favor, and it's carried. Thank you. The meeting has ended at 11:50.